Bonjour, hi, welcome to the stream all around Azure. So today with me, I have another cloud advocate just like me. I'm Frank Boucher. I'm a cloud advocate. I most of the time forgot to introduce myself, so this is me doing it. And this time I won't make any mistake on your name, sir. Laurent Bugnion is with me.
Mais oui, au français, s'il vous plaît. Hey, I just saw John Galloway is on the chat. Oh my God, we have royalty in the house.
Woo
Look at that.
woo! Party time.
Nice.
So do you want to introduce yourself quickly, Laurent?
Sure. All right. Hey, everyone. This is not a cowboy hat. This is an Australian hat. It has I can prove it. There is a kangaroo inside. So my name is Laurent Bugnion. I work for the Microsoft Cloud Advocates team. I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland, where it's, what time is it now? 8 p.m. And so good evening, everyone. And I do a lot of work, especially in .NET, especially with Visual Studio, enterprise kind of things. And also, before I joined, I was doing a lot of mobile, Xamarin, cross-platform development with .NET. And so that's why I thought that this series could be interesting, especially combining Xamarin application, .NET with Azure, with some of the services we have on Azure. And like me, right, when you build an Azure application, it's like Lego blocks that you put together, and then you think like, oh, maybe I could use that service and this service and enhance with that service. And it's exactly what we do now. So last time we did actually no Azure at all, right? We did just some Android and we went into Google. And
Yeah, it's
now
true.
today we are going to go into Azure for sure and work more with the Azure portal. So
See
that should
how
be interesting.
see how I trust you. I did a full stream
Well, I
with
hope
you
you do, yeah.
without talking about Azure on an Azure show.
I know, right? But this piece was kind of an important piece to glue together what we do, because as soon as you do Android, you have to interact with Google anyway. And so we interacted last time. For those of you who haven't seen, last time the show that we gave, it's available online. So I'm sure we'll share some links later.
Yes.
But basically, we prepared the application to receive push notifications. And of course, when you do push notifications on Android, you have to interact with two things. You have to interact with the Google Play services, which is something that not all Android phones or Android devices have. You have some Android devices who use other services, for example, Amazon services. If you have an Amazon Fire TV, which essentially is an Android device, but is not participating in the Google Play service model. And so Google Play service on one hand, and then the other one was the Firebase cloud messaging system, Firebase being a back-end as a service for Android devices, not just Android, I would say, they have stuff for iOS as well. And there we really just use a very, very small portion of the Firebase services, which was the cloud messaging part. Okay. And we are not even going to interact with that anymore, because what we are going to do instead is use an Azure component, an Azure service, which is called the Notification Hub. And we'll talk way more about that later during the demo. But mostly this Notification Hub is a way to send notifications in a cross-platform manner to a number of devices on Android, on Windows. That's what we'll do today. But also on iOS, Baidu, Amazon, etc., etc. So it's an interesting component, an interesting service that we have to do these kind of things.
I know you have a great diagram. Do you want to start with that and maybe just show what we did previously and then the plan of today? So let's go in.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. So this is a beautifully drawn diagram, right? I think we can all agree that I did on OneNote on my Surface. And so what we did last time, so if I take what I did with you yesterday when we kind of rehearsed, right? Last time what we did is that we concentrated on the Google FCM, which is a Firebase cloud messaging system. We created a project there, and then we created a new Xamarin Forms application with an Android part and a Windows part. And I mentioned last time that we didn't We are not going to do iOS in those demos, but iOS would work in exactly the same manner. Basically, you would just add another head project to your Xamarin Forms application, compile it for iOS. And the reason why we don't do iOS here is just that iOS development is a little bit more complex to set up. You need a Mac to build and stuff like that. These days, it's already way easier than it used to be. But just to keep things simple, so I'm not doing it. But basically, it works in exactly the same manner. So last time we did the yellow thing, we did the Google Firebase cloud messaging part. We did the Xamarin application. We configured it, and then we sent our first message directly from Google FCM, from the Firebase console. So this time, what we are going to do, I'm switching color here, is that we are going to start by configuring the Windows, the WNS, the Windows Push Notification Service. And the Windows Push Notification Service that we have here is the equivalent of the Google Firebase Cloud Messaging, but except on the Windows side. It's a gateway, if you want. It's a backend as a service. It's something that you need in order to push notifications to a Windows device. And then, in order to test that, we are going to create the notification hub. And so why do we need the notification hub if you have Google Firebase in the middle anyway and Windows push notification service in the middle anyway? It's just that everything that you push to the notification hub is going to be dispatched automatically to Google, to Windows, to iOS if you have configured that, to Amazon, to Baidu, etc., etc. So it's really a cross-platform way to send messages, so that will make our life easier. Then we will configure the Windows application to receive the messages as well. We will test by sending a message this way. And then after that, we'll do the same on the Android side as well. So on the Android side, we are going to do a little bit of configuration in the application. We don't need to change the FCM part at all. And then we'll send another message here to the Android side. So like this, we'll have covered a nice part of our diagram. What will remain is, and that we'll do next time, is build the endpoint, which will be an Azure Function endpoint. So we'll have an HTTP endpoint that any system, any long-running system, if you want, can use to send push notification to a device. For example, I use that. I do backups periodically of my files in storage. And so I have some important files, markdown files for my blog and stuff like that, that I don't want to lose. And so I do backups periodically. And every time I do a successful backup, I send a notification to my device like this. Twice a day, I receive a notification saying, oh, the backup completed successfully, which is good. If there is an error, then I send another notification. And that would be sent by this any system part, this purple part that we have here, which in the case of the backups is a logic app. So I have a logic app which periodically does my backup and then sends a message. Another system that could use this type of notifications could be an Azure Function, for example. It could be, I don't know, a web job, which suddenly fires for some reason and sends a notification. It could be really literally anything. I'm told that some people might be using it to download some files of a certain size, which I don't know anything about, but it could be something where you say, all right, when the download is finished, for example, send a notification. But again, right, those are just assumptions, I guess. So anyway, so that's the thing, right? So it should be fun. A little bit of code, quite a lot of configuration, and then next time we'll build the endpoint. We'll do also a little bit of Cosmos DB where we'll save the notification in a database on the server so that we have a way also to retrieve them. And then after that, we'll see also on the client how we can save those notifications locally, and we'll use SQLite to do that on the Xamarin clients.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get started.
Very cool, very cool. So that was a little bit. So as a reminder, this is what we are starting with, right? So we have this application in Visual Studio, 3 projects, where we always have one shared project. So it's a typical Xamarin Forms application. We have one shared project with a little bit of UI. The UI here is super simple. It's just basically a XAML file with one label. So right now we are not showing the notifications yet. We are just showing the label when the notification arrives. Because again, what we are doing, what we did last time and what we are doing this time is a little bit more of preparing the application to function, if you want. So there is a lot of things that we need to do. So here we see that we just have one label. And then we have here in the main page, we have this notification receiver. And so the notification receiver, which is, by the way, an interface, right? So it's an I notifications receiver. The reason why we did that is because we said, well, we need to receive notifications in the shared project, but those notifications arrive in Android and in Windows in a very, very different manner, okay? And so we are kind of reaching the limits of the cross-platform programming models that we have with Xamarin, where we try to do as much code as we can in the shared project, so that this is shared in Android, in iOS, and in Windows. But here, since the Android system receives push notifications, the push notification is really a system-level functionality of your Android phone, right? So that's going to arrive in a very different manner, and so we'll have some code in the Android application and in the Windows application, which normally we try to avoid doing that in a cross-platform application because we try to avoid replicating code, duplicating code, right? Yeah. So last time what we did is that we said, well, we need one, like a cross-platform way to receive the notification. So we have this iNotification receiver, which has two events. One is notification received, and the other one is error received when something happened. I guess we could call it error happened or something like that. And then we have an implementation of that particular interface, which is inside the Android project. And so here it is, and we see that this is going to be basically available in the application to receive and to pass the events, pass the notifications to the main application. And we also learned that you can, in Xamarin Forms, you can actually use dependency injection. I explain quickly what it is. Dependency injection, it's kind of having like a cache for services that you want to use. And so you can have one part of the application which says, hey, I want to register this service, and another part of the application which says, okay, I'm going to use that service. And the beauty of that is that even though this here is a learn tvnotif.droid.model.notification receiver, for my main page, which is my cross-platform application, they don't know that it is an Android implementation. They only know that it is an iNotification receiver. That's all they need to know. So here we are registering that receiver, and here in the page we are going to obtain it from the dependency injection system by using dependency service.get, and then we get this instance of iNotification receiver. So that's kind of what we did last time. Then we subscribe to the events, notification received, error received, and we say, okay, when we receive a notification, right now we are just going to show that notification to show the message to the user in the main label. So that's kind of the UI part. Then the other thing that we did in the Android section, we did a few things. First of all, I don't want to repeat everything, but we installed this Google service.json file, which is a file, it's a configuration file that is created for us by the Firebase console. So it's a way to easily configure your Android application. And here the Xamarin Forms application, the Xamarin Android application is going to use that Android mechanism to configure itself.
It's the end-shaking service.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a way to say, hey, I have a unique name, which is com.galasoft.learntvnotif, and every time that a notification is sent to this particular package name, please send it to me, right? It's a kind of way to do that. Then the next thing we did was in the main activity here, we went and decided to get a system service of notification service. So basically, we created a notification channel. We said, please give me, let's subscribe, let's create this notification channel. Okay, so we are going to create that, which is basically the action of registering with the Firebase console in order to get the notifications. That's pretty much what we did. And then we implemented this weird object, which is typical when you do Android programming, where we have this Firebase messaging service, which has here an intent filter. And basically what this predefined class does is be there to receive messages. That's kind of what it does. So it's a service, which means that it's going to sit in the background in your Android device. Push notifications work even if your application doesn't run, which is the beauty of it, right? It's a way to get messages on your phone, even if your application is not running in the foreground or even in the background. So this service is going to always be there. And here we have two things which are important. One thing is on new token. Now this method is going to be called the first time when the Android device registers itself with the Firebase console. And then the Firebase console is going to send back, so when we create this notification channel, the Firebase console is going to send back a unique token, which is a unique token for that particular device. And why is it important to have this token? It's because like this, you can send notifications, you can send messages in a targeted manner to that device only if you want. Now, typically, it's not what we want. Typically, we want to send notifications to a number of devices in that particular use case, right? Like every one of my devices where I have this application installed, I want to show the notifications. But sometimes you want to send notification to just one particular device, for example, saying, well, Mr. Frank Boucher, you have won $5,000, and you didn't, by the way, right? So I'm just saying. But of course, you don't want to send that to everyone. You'd want to send that only to the winner of the contest, right? So in that case, you have a possibility to really target your user. So the token is important. And why am I spending time on the token? Is because later, when we register this application with a notification hub, which this time is the Azure component, we'll need the token. So that's why we need that. And then finally, we have this on message received, which is going to be called every time that a notification is received by the application when the application is running. So that's a way to receive notifications when the application is running. So that's kind of what we did last time. And I propose that now we start working and implementing that for Windows. So what we are going to do for Windows, if I go back to my diagram here, we are going to start with the Windows WNS. WNS, it's Windows Push Notification Services. Mm-hmm. And the way that you do that is that you will go here in something which is called the Partner Center. And so if you go to partner.microsoft.com, it's going to ask you to register or to sign in with an account. This account has to be an MSA, what we call an MSA, which is Microsoft account. So basically, it can be Outlook.com, Live.com, Hotmail, for those of you who still have a Hotmail. It can even be a Gmail.com email address, but that you have registered as an MSA, as a Microsoft account. And this Partner Center here, actually, a lot of things are happening. You notice that it says Windows and Xbox. So this is where you can manage your application. This is where you can reserve a name. For example, if you decide to do a Windows app or an Xbox application, the first thing you do is that you go there and you register the name for that because you want to reserve that name for you because it's going to be a unique name, right? It's going to be a name that is unique across all the Windows devices. So what we are going to do here is create a new application, and that's also the portal that I would use to submit this application to the Windows Store. Now here we are not going to do that because we are going to do something that we call side loading, which means that basically we are just loading the application on a device which is configured to receive it. So for example, it can be simply deploying from Visual Studio, or it can be also deploying a package on a device where you have enabled that device to accept these kind of packages. So that's what it's called, side loading. But this is also here where you could control basically the submission to a Windows Store if you wanted to start making money, for example, with your application. So here I'm going to create a new application. And then, like I said, we need a unique name. So for this demo, I'm going to call it LB Notif, which is LB, my initials, Laurent Bugnion. Of course, you wouldn't want that weird name for an actual application running, that you sell to the public. But here in that case, I just need something unique just for the demo because I'm going to delete that eventually anyway. So I'm going to check the availability. It is available, which is good. I'm going to reserve that name, which essentially tells Windows, all right, at some point I will have an application called that. Okay. Right now we still don't have it. And then we can start configuring what we need. So there are a few things you can do here. You can start the submission process. Right now, like I mentioned, we don't even have an application, so we're not going to do that. You can also configure analytics, like how many people have downloaded my application, etc., from the Windows Store. But one thing which is interesting for us is on the product management, you go to WNS, which is Windows push notification service, all right? Mm-hmm. And here you have this link, which is important, which is a live services site. So let's go there, all right? And here, this is where we can configure what they call live services. Now, why is it called live services? It comes from the good old days when, do you remember the days when OneDrive was called, what was it called? SkyDrive, I believe, back then. And then we had live.com. And so we had all the live services around our application. So it's still from those days if you want. But basically, those are just services that you have in the backend to enhance your application, okay? Cool. So here we have two important keys that we need to use later. This is the application secret. Totally showing that to the world right now because, like I mentioned, I will delete this application later anyway. And the other one is the package SID, which is a unique identifier for the Windows Store application. So this is a unique identifier which is linked to your unique name that you have reserved. And now at some point we will need to bring that into Visual Studio, and I'll show you in a second how you can do that. So that's the first part of the puzzle, is basically to create this application, and now we have it. So if I go back here to our diagram, voila, this part here, I think we can take here a pen and we can say, all right, this part is okay, we have done it, good. So now the next step is going to be to create the notification hub. So notification hub, this is an Azure component, and so like always with Azure, we are going to go into the Azure portal, but you could also do it with the shell, with a Cloud Shell, or with any shell. You could do it with an ARM template, right? I know you love ARM templates, so it's definitely something you know. You don't love ARM templates?
Oh,
you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, c'est sympa.
I was just like, yeah, I don't know why you're saying that. Like, it's not like, No,
because that's your thing, right? I'm always going to mention ARM template to you, right? No, because Frank is very humble, but he just did a great series about ARM templates, and I think it's getting published now, right?
We have 3 episodes out this week. It was something else that was published with forgot DevLab, I think, or some DevOps Lab, something like another tool. So I'm assuming next episode will be next week.
Right. So ARM templates are awesome, right? They're a way to basically automate the deployment of multiple resources. So here again, right, I could do this. I will do this in the UI for the demo, but you could also go, for example, in the Cloud Shell here and say, all right, I want to AZ create, so here it's going to be AZ notification hub create, I assume. I don't know, I never tried it, so I'm not going to do it here. So what we are going to do is create a resource, and like always, when you create resources in Azure, you have some templates that you can choose. So you see that we have a number of templates. We always have quick start. So in case you want to get started with that, the one that I want to create here is a notification hub. So I'm going to select that. And so if you want to try this at home, you have multiple ways to do that. You can create a free Azure account. If you don't have one already, the free Azure account is going to give you $200 that you can spend on anything you like literally anything. And the good news is that for the notification hub, it's actually, we are going to use here for the demo, and you can also use that in production. There is a free tier, which is pretty generous. We'll see later what it contains. And so you can totally create this notification hub, play with it, experiment with it. It's not going to cost you anything. So with a free account, it's a good deal because like this, you can try everything and that's not going to cost you anything. So here we have down there some documentation. We have a few links that Frank is going to publish in the show notes as soon as those links are shortened, which should happen anytime soon.
I could do it right now, but I won't pay attention, so that's why.
Oh, exactly. No, I want your full attention, man. All right, so I'm going to create that, and then the next step is, as always in Azure, you have to define a few parameters, and so I'm going to say which subscription I want to use. That's my own personal subscription. I'm going to use it here, and then I want a resource group. And here since so far we have always worked in Google, right, in the Firebase cloud messaging portal. We don't have a resource group in Azure yet, so we are going to create a new one. And then later, when we do the Azure function, when we do the Cosmos DB, we are going to add to this resource group. So what is a resource group? It's just a way to manage resources, to manage the lifetime of your resources. For example, you can set permissions on a resource group, and those are going to be cascaded, inherited. You can also delete a resource group, and that's going to delete all the resources within. So it's quite convenient. So I'm going to call that LB Notif, because why not? All right. And then I'm going here to enter a new namespace name. So what is a namespace for a notification hub? Well, essentially, you can have multiple hubs which all belong to one single namespace. And I would say it's more of a way to organize your resources. For example, if you have multiple campaigns, right? Because push notifications are often used for campaigns. And I'm sure you know how annoying it is. I don't like that very much myself. In fact, all my push notifications are disabled on my phone except for a few select services. For example, the notification client that we are building today, right? But really, you can use that for promotions, like saying, hey, you have bought our super application and now we have 10% less on in-app purchase, what they call, right? So you have purchased our game and now you can buy new characters, for example, for less money or whatever. So you have a way to organize your campaigns like that. So here for us, we are going to have one single namespace. So I'm also going to call it LB Notif. I'm not very clever for names. It's really hard to name stuff, right? So
It is. Naming is hard. That's a fact.
It is. I think we used to say the two hardest thing in programming is multi-threading and naming stuff, right? So giving names to stuff. So here we have the name of the notification hub itself. So we have one namespace which will have only one notification hub. Like I said, you could have more than that. So I'm also going to call it LB Notif. And then we have the location. And like because we have done this video for the Azure fundamentals, right? Regions are very important. There are a few things that help you to decide where you want to have this region. The first thing is you want to put this service as close to your users as possible because there is this little thing called speed of light, which even at Microsoft we have not managed to be faster than. That was a weird sentence, right? So anyway, speed of life is important. And so if you are closer to your users, if your service, your data center is closer to your user, then the latency is going to be smaller. I would say for a push notification, it's probably not super relevant though, because push notifications work. They are pretty fast, but they are not going to happen immediately either, right? It could be possible that the phone is off for a while. I just put my phone in airplane mode before I went on the streaming, which means that I'm not going to get any push notifications. But when I start my phone again, then I'll start getting the notifications because notifications, there is a retry. Okay, so they are going to try multiple times to send them. So I would say that maybe it's not super important to be as fast as possible for that. So another possible thing that you might take in account is, personally, I like to have all my services in the same region. But it can be also interesting to have services in different regions in case something happens in one region. So I could have here, for example, one notification hub in Western Europe, and then maybe another redundant one in Western US, for example. Why not, right? So there are multiple things. Also, one thing which is important is that this is going to affect the cost of your services. So like I said, here we are going to use the free tier, but if you want to upgrade later, it can be interesting to compare. And so that's something you can say, you can check. If you go here to this change tier link, then it will show you the different tiers. And this view is not super easy to compare. So what I prefer to go to is, I'm going to open the link from my list.
I can share it. So which one it is? Is it the...
Yeah, the pricing details. So the azure.microsoft.com pricing details notification hub. That would be the relevant link.
I have it.
So this is basically the pricing calculator that we have on Azure. This is where you can see everything, every service, and see how much it's going to cost you. And if you go down here, you have a little bit a better table, which is showing you what everything is going to cost. And you can even select the region here. So we even show by region what is the price. So now we are going to use the free tier. So what do we get in the free tier? We are going to get 1 million notifications, okay, for free per month, which seems a lot, but if you do marketing campaigns, it might not be really a lot, right? I mean, it depends how many. I imagine that if Microsoft does a campaign for some reason and try to reach, for example, all the users who have Office installed on their phone and on their Windows devices, that's going to be probably way more than 1 million, okay? So you probably want to take this in account. Also, it's 1 million per month. So if you do 2 campaigns, then suddenly it's 500,000 users per campaign only, right? Et cetera, et cetera.
That's still very, like, it's plenty for a small business or just to play with it. Like a 1 million by month. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's plenty. And like I said, for our usage, totally sufficient, even for an application which is running in production for an SME, right, a small, medium enterprise. That's definitely possible. And also what is possible is that you can always start with a free tier and then you can upgrade later. Okay, so this is always possible. So keep that in mind. Always better to start with something which is smaller, unless you have good reasons to think that it's not going to be enough. Then after that, if you have additional pushes, so what's happening here is that for the free tier, you cannot have additional pushes. It's 1 million, and that's a hard limit. But if you pay $10 per month, then you can add additional pushes for $1 a month. So instead of being $10 a month, it's going to be 11. So that's a way to basically upgrade your services without changing tier, just by adding more money like that. Then the namespaces, which I mentioned before. So namespaces are more in a way to organize your campaigns. For the free tier, you have 100 namespace, which is really a lot. And if you go to the standard tier, which is a little bit more expensive at $200 a month. So here you start to have to budget a little bit, but then you have unlimited namespaces. Hubs, I'm not going to talk about hubs. Active devices, now that might be where the limit might be a little bit more painful in quotation marks, because for the free tier you can have only, again in quotation marks, 500 devices registered, which is quite a lot. But if you have an application which is quite successful, you probably have more than 500 users, right? So you probably have more than 500 devices. And so that's where maybe you have to start thinking of paying $10 a month for these kind of things. Now, it's always the same model in Azure, which is we want you to start for free. And then if you get successful, we are going to start charging you and taking a little bit money from you, because, you know, we have kids and they like to eat. I'm sure that your kids like to eat as well, right?
Well, usually.
Usually, yeah. Every day, you know, it's crazy, but every day.
Like even multiple times a day.
So so at some point we are going to ask you to basically share your success with us. But this success, this money that you're going to pay us, is only when you reach a certain limit, and then you get even more successful. You start making, you know, way more money with your devices, either with ads or by selling your app or whatever. And then you're going to kick back some money to us in order to have those services running. Cross-platform, this is definitely cross-platform everywhere. Telemetry, you have some telemetry. I'll show you a little bit about that. But if you want really to have the enhanced telemetry, you have to go with the more expensive tier. Note that the telemetry here is only the telemetry for the notification hub itself. You also have telemetry in the push notification in the Windows portal, and you also have telemetry in the Google Firebase. Though if you remember, or maybe you don't remember, last time we disabled that because we said we'll only use the telemetry which is in Application Insights. That's something that we'll see next time. All right, so that's pretty much it. A few things that you can do with the more expensive tiers that you cannot do with the free tier is something like a scheduled push, for example. If you want to say, all right, tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. I want to send a bulk of messages to my North American friends, because for them it's going to be late at night, and for me it's very early morning, so I don't want to wake up. So scheduled push, etc. So there are a few things, but basically, as we see for our demo, for our small application, for our generic client, which is only going to be side-loaded on certain devices, the free tier is going to be way more than we need. So we can close that. I'm going to go back to the portal. And just because I can, I'm going to put this guy here in Western Europe. Notice that I even have Switzerland North and West, so I could actually run it in Switzerland if I wanted to. But really, most of my services run in Western Europe, which is Germany. It's just next door. So that's good for me. All right, we talked last time about tags. Or did we talk about that last time? I forget. At some point, we talked about tags. So I'm going to add a created by tag, which is just saying, all right, I'm the person who created that. Now, that's useful when you have multiple people who have access to your subscription. Like these people know when if they want to delete something, they can check with me quickly before if that's good or not. I can validate the deployment, which is just going to check that everything is correct, that I didn't do anything bad. And then we are starting the deployment. And so again, like everything in Azure, the deployment is going to take a little moment to load. And you can always check the status by going to the notification tab here. And then you see the deployment. If you click here, then you go back to the deployment itself. And you always see the details. So if something fails, for example, that's where you will find the details of what failed. It could be that, I don't know, I have reached a certain quota. You know that as Microsoft employees, for example, we have certain quotas that we cannot exceed. When, so at certain times, they limit a little bit the amount of resources that you can use, these kind of things. But here in that case, everything went well. We see that the deployment succeeded. So I can go to the resource. And so that's our notification hub. So again, to remind everybody, if I go back to our schema here, this is the component that we created here. That's the notification hub. And so here we can also put a quick mark next to it. If I can do that, boom, it is created now. But now what's missing is the configuration of it, all right? So let's go back to the notification hub. Let's take a quick tour. So the first thing that we always see is a few here, a few things about subscription, about the free tier, etc. Then we see active devices registered. So right now I don't have any device using that hub. We see the number of pushes. Now, interesting, I have 7 pushes, even though I didn't do anything. But it's because I used the exact same name before when I was rehearsing for the demo, and so it's just taking that because it's the same name. And then we see a little bit of monitoring, so a little bit of limited, I would say, monitoring that you can do here. But it's already interesting to see what's happening. Like I see, for example, when I did my pushes, it was about, what time is it now? So that is in UTC most probably. So it would be 2 p.m. my time. So around 2 p.m. my time, I was rehearsing. And you see that I was sending notification. Okay, so we have that. And then we have a few other things that we can configure. So we have access control, which is often something that you find in Azure resources, in Azure services, which allows you to say, all right, if I have a team, I want only 1 or 2 person in the team to have access to that particular piece of the puzzle. And so you can say, all right, that person who has access to the subscription can go and modify the notification hub, but nobody else. So it's about security. But here, most importantly, we have the settings. And as you can see, this is all the services that the notification hub can send messages to. So it can send to Apple with the Apple Push Notification Service, APNS. It can send to Google with the Firebase Cloud Messaging Service, FCM, which we configured last time. It can send to Windows Phone. And it can send to Windows, to Windows and to Windows Phone. All right, I should put the emphasis on Windows Phone because, yes, you can still push notification.
Wait, Laurent, did you say Windows Phone?
I did say Windows Phone indeed. And I'm checking my desk because I know that somewhere I have a Windows Phone. I don't know.
Yeah, someone is calling me. Yes. Oh, we should stop mentioning Windows. Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. All right. So Windows Phone is okay. We cannot mention it anymore. No, but interestingly,
Peter is fainting. Like,
yeah, I know, right? Oh my God, Windows Phone. Oh. No, I mean Windows Phone. Probably the best phone UI ever invented, right? I think we can say.
I had two phones like that. I had 2 of my previous phone were Windows Phone, and I love them.
Yeah, I had a bunch of them. Actually, my very first Windows Phone was a prototype. I think it's safe to talk about it now because I was working for a consultant firm. We did some of the very first applications for Windows Phone, and so they sent us some prototypes. And one of them was a prototype where you would open, there was an actual physical keyboard on it. It was actually pretty cool. But then a little bit later, the glue started to actually give up, and then the keyboard came off of it. So it was really a total prototype. But those were the days. So now that we close the parentheses, all right, you also have Amazon. So if you do things with Amazon Fire TV, for example, you can also use that. So like I explained before, it's an Android device which is not directly participating into Google Play services. And we also have Baidu, which is super important in China, as you probably know. So those are the different platforms that we can send devices to. And I think that the chat is getting alive as soon as we mention Windows Phone. So what will happen if I mention Silverlight? I think people are going to get crazy now. All right.
Now we'll get so some whatever.
All right, let's move on. So what else do we see here? We see access policies. We are going to talk about that a little bit later. This is basically, it is if you want a connection string, which is going to point to that particular service. So it's what we are going to use from the outside to send notifications through the notification hub, to address the notification hub, and then go to further devices. Another thing we have is a pricing tier. So right now we are in the free tier, but this is where you could upgrade. So like I mentioned, good idea to start with the free tier. If at some point you check your monitoring, your metrics, and then you see that, oh, wow, I'm reaching this 1 million limit, or I'm reaching this 500 devices limit, I need to upgrade. That's where you can do it, and then you start paying for it. We also have alerts, which is always interesting because with alerts, you can be notified if suddenly the service doesn't work anymore, etc. You have metrics, like I mentioned before, so some metrics. You have more metrics with the paying tiers, obviously, right? But here you already have a few things that you can check. And finally, we have test send, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It's to test the service. All right. So right now we are configuring the Windows part. So let's go into Windows and let's see what they expect. They expect the package SID, and they expect a security key. So let's go back to our application. Remember, this is where we did the registration. This is a Windows dashboard. So this is the package SID. That looks appropriate. So let's copy that, and I'm going to paste that here. And here's the very funny thing, which is that we work for the same company, but here in Azure, they call it security key. And here in Windows, they call it application secret. So we just need to know that it's actually the same thing. Vocabulary is very difficult. So we copy this application secret, and then we paste it in security key here, and then we can save. So what did we do here? Well, basically, if I go back here, we have configured our service so that right now we have established a link between the notification hub and the Windows WNS. All right, so that's what we did now. Cool. All right, so now that we have that piece ready, let's start configuring our application because we want to start receiving messages so we can go to the code. And inside the code, like very often, everything starts with a NuGet package, all right? So we are going to go into our application. And so as a reminder, this project here, for those of you who are not super familiar with Xamarin Forms application, this is a shared code, all right? And then we have one so-called Android head, which is the start application. This is what we are going to load on the phone together with the shared code. And then we have the Windows head, which we are going to load on the Windows device together with the shared code, all right? So that's how it works. So now we are going to work in Windows. So I'm going to right-click here and select that as a starter project. And then I'm going to add a NuGet package. And this NuGet package, so I'll go to Manage NuGet Packages here. This NuGet package is called Windows Azure.messaging.managed. All right, so that's the package that you want to add. And I'm going to install that. And later we are going to see what it does. It's basically the package which allows me to create a client for the notification hub.
Windows Azure?
Windows Azure, yeah, I know. That's weird, right? It's a little bit interesting. So it's still, as you can see, here it's still 0.1.79, right? So I imagine that at some point there will be a rename operation for that thing because Windows Azure is not really something that we use anymore. But yeah, interestingly, that's how it is at the moment.
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, if you want to know more about that, I'm going to show you another link, which is also something that my good friend Frank is going to share with you. But the docs.microsoft.com here. So there is this link, and Frank is going to do a short link for that. But here we have a tutorial which explains a little bit better how you can do Notification Hub together with a universal Windows application. And I totally inspired myself from this tutorial to create what I'm showing you here. So hopefully that's going to be helpful for you. All right.
Which one it is?
This is the second link in the list that I sent you.
Okay. I'm sorry I didn't create short links, so it will be a long one. 3 lines in the chat.
That's fine by me. That's fine by me. But yeah, no, it's something which is useful. Sorry, I noticed that my camera is getting crazy, so I was actually trying to change the exposure a little bit as we were speaking. So that's why I'm a little bit distracted right now. So let's go camera, boom, and I'm going to just change the exposure a little bit. Poof. Is it better? Oh no, now it's a little bit dark, huh? All right, probably better now. Okay, cool. Yeah. Good. So let's go back to our thing. So this is a tutorial, and so like I mentioned, I did install this NuGet package. All right, I'm going to save that, and then we are going to do something which probably I think Damien is probably sleeping right now because he's in Australia. You know Damien Brady, right?
I know what you will say.
You know Damien Brady, right? So Damien Brady, who is a good friend of ours and a colleague, an amazing colleague on our team, does DevOps. And so he says, you know, good friends never let friends right-click publish. And yet here we are going to right-click publish because we need actually this feature, and this is where it's hidden. There is no other way, right? So I'm going to right-click on the UWP project. Now I'm going to select publish, and then Damien is having a nightmare right now. He's like turning in his bed. And I'm going to associate app to the store. So at least I'm not publishing per se, but I'm going to do something which is telling Visual Studio that whenever you build this application, you're going to enclose into the manifest some information about what we just did in here, in the portal, in this Windows portal. All right. And so why do I need to do that? So typically, this is something that I need to do at some point during the deployment process, during the development process, before I want to submit to the Microsoft Store, to the Windows Store. Okay, that's the latest moment where I need to do that. But here, we are doing that because we want to take advantage of this link between the Windows WNS, the Windows Push Notification Service, and the Windows device. We want to establish this link. So that's why we need to do that, even though we are probably never going to push this application to the Windows Store, and yet I still need to associate it. So I'm going to go into the wizard. I'm going to make sure that I select the same account. Then I signed on here in the portal. I'm signed on with my Outlook.com account. So I select the same account here. And then it's going to show me all the applications which are registered in my name, including LBnotif, which is the application which we created in the beginning of this session. Mm-hmm. So here we go. We have LBnotif here. I'm going to select that. I'm going to click on Next. All right. It's going to do its magic, which is essentially download a set of identifiers and setting some manifest files in the background. And now we are ready to say associate. And like this, we have established this link. So that's the first thing we need to do. Okay. So now we have the NuGet package. We have the link. So now we can start doing some actual code. So let's go into app.xaml.ms. Now, I want to to attract your attention to the fact that I'm inside the Windows application. I'm not inside the shared code. Now, this is a little bit confusing because here we have an app.xaml.cs as well. We have two. We have one for the shared code, for the Xamarin Forms application, which is going to be used in Android, in iOS, in Windows, everywhere. And then we have one in the Windows application, which normally you never go into there. Here we have to go into there because we are doing a very Windows-specific operation, which is receiving push notifications, okay? So again, it's a little bit confusing. Don't get confused. This is really the one in the UWP project, okay? And then we are going to start by defining a few things. So we are going to add some attributes. And so I'm just going to save a few things. First of all, I'm going to save here the iNotification receiver. So why do I need that? Well, if you remember, we have done the same thing in the Android project. We have said, okay, from app.xaml.cs, which is where I will receive the notification, I want to get this notification receiver and then pass the notification to it so that my shared code, which is my UI project, can receive it and display it to the world. Okay, so this is just the way that we are going to send that to the shared code. Then we have the push notification channel. And so that here comes from windows.networking.pushNotification. So basically it is from the NuGet package that we just added. This is the channel that we are going to open between the WNS, the Windows Push Notification Service and the device. Then what we are going to do is going to onLaunch. So onLaunch is the very first event which is called when the application is created, when the application is started, okay? So what we are going to do here is register this notification receiver with the dependency injection service. So now maybe people are a little bit confused here again, because if I go back to the Android project, in this notification receiver here, we said, okay, this is a notification receiver which implements iNotification receiver, so it's good for the dependency injection. And here I had an attribute to register that with the cache, to say, all right, I want to create an instance of that guy into the cache and make it available to the consumers. Unfortunately, this particular way to register with a dependency injection framework in Xamarin Forms doesn't work well in Windows UWP. It's a little problem that they have right now. So what we are going to do, we are going to actually share this code. We are going to use the same code in Windows and in Android, but we are going to change it a little bit. So let me show you how we do that. So first of all, we go into the Android project. I go to Properties. And then into the build tab, I'm going to define a conditional compilation symbol, okay? Conditional compilation symbol, and I'm going to call that Droid. So I'm going to say here essentially, when you build the code, if you have some shared code, you need to build it in the context of Android, okay? Android here is just a name. I could have called that Hello World if I wanted to, it doesn't matter, but I'm just creating this compilation symbol. And then inside this code here, I'm going to say if this symbol is defined, notice the hashtag here, okay? This is a directive that I'm giving to the compiler. If this symbol droid is defined, then I want you to use this, otherwise don't. And this is going to allow me now to take this notification receiver and to also use it in the Windows code. So I will use it in the Android code and also in the Windows code. Does that make sense, or is it a little bit complicated?
Well, I can follow.
Okay.
Yes, it is complex, but at the same time,
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of moving pieces, definitely. It's always like that when you do cross-platform, right? So the reason why I do that is because I want to take this file here and I want to share it into my Windows project as well. I want to build this file twice. I want to build it once for the Android code and once for the UWP code. So to do that, I'm going to add a new folder into the UWP code, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to right-click here. I'm going to say Add Existing Item. I'm going to go to my Android project, which is where this file lives, the physical file lives. I'm going to take the notification receiver, but instead of adding it, which would add a copy of it, I don't want to add a copy, I want to add as a link. And this is going to basically create a link between the Windows project and this file, which is physically living into the Android project. Essentially, what it means is that this file is going to be compiled twice. It's going to be compiled once in the Android context where this pre-compiler directive is defined. So it's going to take this attribute here. It's going to execute that. But it's also going to execute. You see, I can switch the context here because now I have the same file also in the context of Windows, of the Windows 10 application. And here, where this pre-compiler directive is not defined, you see this is gray. It means that this line is not going to be executed, okay? So it's a little bit tricky. Sorry to the viewers if you're confused. I recommend that if you're watching that, go back into the recording, follow step by step. Hopefully it will be a little bit more helpful. And again, right, if you don't understand LBUGNION on Twitter, don't hesitate to send me a message and to kick my butt because I was not clear. It's a little bit confusing, but it is very often the case when you do cross-platform apps.
Michael says he's following. The other on the chat are quiet, so we'll assume that everybody will be able to answer the little quiz we have at the end, right?
Right. Yeah, no, because there is a test at the end. Yeah, and if you fail, ooh.
Exactly.
Okay, so that part was a little bit tricky, so I spent a little bit more time on that. So let's move on. So now we have a notification receiver. We have prepared it for Android and also for Windows. So now I can go, and as soon as my application is starting, I will register the notification receiver with the dependency service. So now it participates into the dependency injection model. So basically, this line here does exactly the same as this line here, except that this line here only works in Android, and this line here works in Windows as well. Okay, so that's kind of the thing. All right, cool. So let's move on. The test should be interesting. Yeah, let's move on. Now at the end, after we activate the window, so after the application is actually created and the window is shown, we are going to start the registration process with a Windows notification service. So we are going to call this method initialize notification. This method doesn't exist yet, so I'm going to generate it. All right, it's returning a task, so it's probably going to be async. And I'm going to remove that. And then what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to try something. I'm going to try, if it fails, if whatever I'm going to try here fails, I'm going to notify the receiver which is going to show a message in red to the user, okay, error when creating channel. But if everything goes well, what we want to do is first create the push notification channel. So this push notification channel, that's how it works. First of all, we are going to check if we have one already, because it's good programming practice when you have events in .NET and when you dispose, when you delete an item, you want to unsubscribe the event handler. Okay, so that's the thing I do first. Then I'm going to create here a new push notification by calling push notification channel manager dot create push notification channel for application async. So you told me that I love long titles. Here you have a long method name, right? Which is really, it's pretty long. So what this is doing here is the equivalent that we did in Android. Remember in Android, we went into the main activity here. And into the main activity, we did here notification manager.create notification channel. Okay, that was the Android code. And now in Windows, we have different code because, again, it's a different notification system because we are doing here some Windows code as opposed to the Android code we were doing before. So now we have a channel. And when the channel is created, then we can subscribe to the push notification received event, which is going to be called whenever a push notification is received and when the application is active. So I'm going to create this event handler, all right? Then the next step is going to be to implement this event handler. So I'm going to take that here, voila. I'm going to say, oh, let's come back to that in a second. First of all, I'm going to finish that because this is a little bit tricky here. So here I subscribe to the notification received event, and then I'm going to subscribe to the notification hub. So I'm going to establish a link which in my schema was not directly visible, but there is also a link between this device here and this notification here, okay? This is a way for this device to tell the notification hub, hello, I'm here. Whenever something happens, let me know, okay? Because if there was no Windows devices registered, then the notification hub would not even bother sending notifications, all right? Yep. So we need that. And what we do here is that we create a new notification hub. So again, this notification hub comes from Microsoft.Windows-Azure.messaging. This is a NuGet package that we installed earlier. And now we will need two things for that. We'll need a hub name and we will need a connection string. So since we are going to share this information with Android later, I decided to put it into a new file. So I'm going to create this constants file. And this file is going to be shared code. So I put it into the share project, into this project here, which doesn't have a .android or a .uwp. I'm going to create here a new file, add class. Let's call that constants.cs. All right, this is something that I can expand later with more constant if I have some. It's going to be just constant, so I can do a public static class. And inside there, I'm going to have three constants. One is going to be the name of the hub, and one is going to be the connection string. The tag name right now is not super relevant. I'll talk about it a little bit later. So where do we find those information? Hub name, let's go back to the portal, okay? So portal here. Hub name, that's the name of the hub. In that case, lbnotif. So I'm going to just take it, put it here, and let's save that. And then the notification string, I'm going to go here into access policies, into my hub, and I have two access policies. I have one which is called listen, and I have one which is called full. And like the name says, the listen one is the one that you need to receive some notifications. The other one is the one that we'll use next time when we do the Azure function portal, which is going to basically the endpoint, which is going to send notifications to the notification hub. So here I only want to listen. I'm going to copy that string, and then I'm going to paste that here. Here we go. be careful because this is information that you don't want to land in GitHub, all right? And in fact, if you go to the GitHub repository for this particular session, which maybe you can put into the chats. Oh, and I think I didn't even give it to you, right? So
nope, I don't have any GitHub.
I gave it to you last time. Yeah, I gave it to you last time.
Okay.
I can quickly update it.
I will retrieve it from previous.
Yeah, exactly. So it is. It's on GitHub. It's called sample-Xamarin-notifications, I believe, something like that. So you don't want to have that into GitHub because this notification string is a secret. It's not something that you want to share with the world, okay? But right now it is in my code, okay? So now I have defined, let's go back to here. I have created my notification hub with a hub name and a connection string, and then I register using the channel URI, the channel being the channel between the Windows notification system and the device. So again, if I go back to my diagram here, what I did now is that I did create here and configure the Windows notification service. I have configured my application here to subscribe, to register for a channel with the Windows NS, and then I pass this information to the notification hub so that the notification hub knows I have at least one device registered to receive push notifications. Okay, so now should be interesting because at this point, oh, we just need to say what's happening when we receive a notification. So in Windows, notifications are a little bit more elaborate, I would say, than in Android. We have more choices. And here you see we have a push notification type. And if I click dot on that, we see that we have badge, we have a row, we have tile fly out, and we have toast. And so what are those notifications? Well, I also prepared a link for that. So if you copy the link, which is the two last links, there is one which is called tiles and notifications / badges. Mm-hmm. And the other one is called tiles and notifications / adaptive interactive toast. So a badge notification would be just a very small notification which is changing the number of the tile of your Windows application. So if I go to my, I cannot show my start menu on this screen because I configured my other screen, but you probably saw that already. You have now 63 unread mails, okay? So that's a small notification. Then we have row notifications. Row notifications are just some payload. If I go back here you have row. This is some payload that you can send to your application, but this is only going to be given to the notification if the notification is running. There is no UI associated to it. It's just a way to send some information to your device. So it's not what we want. Then we have a badge notification. We have the tile notification. The tile notification would be a way to change the whole tile here. So for example, if you want to update this icon, or if you want to show a picture and you want this picture to rotate from time to time, that would be what you choose. But in our case, what we want is a toast notification. That's the notification that is going to come when the application is not running. It's going to show up in your sidebar. If I swipe my sidebar, of course you don't see it because again it's on the other screen. But if you swipe the sidebar, you're going to see that bar on the side of your screen, right? I might want to actually change. Well, we'll see that later. Okay, so in essence, what I say is that, all right, I want to receive toast notifications here. And what is a toast notification? Essentially, it's some XML code, all right? So this XML code, we are going to decode it. I'm going to take the argument of the notification. I'm going to check that it's a toast notification. It should be set because it's a toast. I'm going to take the content, and that's an XML document, and then I'm going to take the first child. And so the message that I'm going to receive looks like that. It's going to look something like that. It's some superb XML code. Don't you love XML, right? So as a reminder, in Android, we'll receive some JSON, right? We'll receive something like that. But here we receive some XML. And so we are going to receive the toast. And inside the toast, we have different types of toast which are templated. The toast generic is just a generic toast. You have some toast where you get a picture, you have some tools where you get other things, and you can see more information here, by the way, in this second link that Frank posted just now, where here you can see that you can even have some buttons on your toast if you want, accept and decline, etc. Now, of course, here, because we are doing a cross-platform system, we are going to have to use something which is compatible everywhere. And so, for example, we cannot really have buttons here. It's going to be quite complicated. So we are just going to take a simple toast, a generic toast. And what I'm going to do in my code is simply going to extract here. I'm going to look for this launch attribute, because in the test that I'm going to send, you see that I have a launch attribute. And basically, this is the string that I want to extract and that I want to give to my receiver so that it's displayed in the UI. So now at this point, we are ready actually to receive our first notification on Windows. So why don't we try things out? So I'm going to here create a breakpoint here. I'm going to create a breakpoint probably in the initialize function here. Here I see that I have something which is not correct because this is an await. And so, of course, I need to do this async. Now, normally we tell you, OK, we don't want you to do async void except for event handlers, right? And this is an event handler, so it's OK. I cannot have async task because it wouldn't work. So I'm just going to declare that async. I'm going to build. That should work actually fine. And once we are built, we are going to start this application. So what's going to happen here is that the application is going to start. It's going to call on launch because this is a Windows application. We are going to register everything. We are going to start the initializing process for the notifications, and we are going to declare this push notification event handler. And then after that, we'll see if it works. By the way, how are we going to test that? Well, very simple. In our push notification hub here, if you go down, there is a test send. And so
Wonderful.
test send allows you, this is quite useful, right? So test send allows you to quickly test if you have configured your application properly. It's only for tests. Don't use it for production or anything. So we see that the first choice is Windows Phone. In our case, we want to use Windows, not Windows Phone, all right? And what kind of notification are we going to send? Well, like I said before, we are going to use a toast notification in that case. So here I have a proposal. It's not really what I want. What I want is really send this test code here that I mentioned before. I want this toast generic here. Let's paste that. Now let's see if our application is done building. It's not totally done. Just takes a couple seconds more, hopefully. And then after that, we are going to start the application. When I do that on stage, I'm not actually building that, right?
Well, that's fine.
On stage, I would have a pre-built application somewhere, but this is just to show you that we are actually doing this live in front of you people. So, all right.
The best of the best. I was watching the caption, and it was good. It was good most of the time.
Okay. Yeah, those captions are always a little bit hit and miss. It can work fine until you hit something really, really complicated. But it's always fun, right?
Well, and also like when we speak, there's a lot of technical terms that don't really exist in a dictionary. So that tool will just try to match it as closer.
No, absolutely. No, all in all, I think that the AI models for natural language interactions have, they have come a long way, right? So it's pretty amazing what you can do now. Obviously, our accent doesn't make things easier, for sure.
What do you mean accent?
Yeah, exactly, right.
Does someone hear accent here? I don't have any accents.
It's pretty amazing that said where we came, right?
Yep.
So I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking that we might not have time to do the Android part, which is fine because it's a series anyway. So we'll probably test that and see that if we get the notification, we'll take that as a success. And then the Android configuration, I can show that next time if you agree. So now our build is complete. So I'm going to start the application. And of course, I did something stupid, which is start the application with Control F5. And I don't want that. I want F5 because I have some breakpoints. So I want to show you that it's actually going to run. All right, so now I'm starting the application again, this time with F5. It says deploy started. It's because it's a Windows application. It's going to be deployed on my main machine. Last time, if you remember, we deployed on my phone. And then I was mirroring my phone with Visor. Here, we don't need to do that because this application is just going to start on my local machine. Of course, I could also start it on an emulator if I wanted to, or even on another device. Okay, so now we are in the unlaunched event handler. So we are going to start by
just Laurent to let you know, we have a little bit of delay on anything you change. So just wait like 1 second before moving around because we might miss what you're showing.
Yeah, no problem. Of course, my Power Surface Pro is a little bit overloaded right now.
Right, but that's why I'm just mentioning
because it's streaming and it's building and all that, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Then the rest of the code here is just standard Windows code. So let's go immediately to that part down there. We are going to basically get the receiver and save it. And then we are going to start by initializing the notification. So let's do that. Now we are here. I'm going to create the channel. So now I'm registering the channel with the Windows push notification service. I'm telling to the Windows push notification service, hello, I have a new device here. Please send me all push notifications that you will receive. I declare here the event handler. And then I do the same thing with the notification hub. So I'm going to tell the notification hub, hello, I'm here again, right? So I'm interested in everything you do. And so I'm going to register this. This URI is actually unique to that particular device, all right? So this is a unique URI for that particular device. And now that we are ready, we are going to raise notification receive. We are going to say, hey, we are ready. It's not really a notification, but basically you see that here I have ready my beautiful the message that we are ready. So now let's try to send the notification. So I'm going to go back into my portal. I have prepared the notification here. I'm going to click on send. All right. Oh, wow, it works. So that's really cool. I have been in streams where we had confetti on the screen when something was working. So here we have a little bit of cheap production. So sorry about that, viewers. We are going to add confettis for the next time, I'm pretty sure. But basically, exactly. So here we have received a notification. So what type of notification is that? It's a toast notification. That's great. So let's continue. We are going to analyze the XML, extract the first child, extract the launch attribute, and this attribute we are going to raise it. You see that it says hello from notification hub. So let's do that. And now if I go back to the application, we see that here it says hello from notification hub. So it is working fine. If I remove, I'm going to remove all the breakpoints. And let's go here and try to arrange my screen a little bit better. Something like that, all right? Now I can send something else. I can send hello, Frank, just to show you that I'm not lying. Sending test message, poof, and now it says hello, Frank. So it works. Now, one part that we didn't see here is that I also received a toast on my Windows machine, because that will work even if my application is not running, which is the beauty of it. I might be able to demonstrate that. And to do that, I will need to specify that this is my main screen. So let me do that quickly. Like these people can actually see that. So I'll make this my main display. All right. Am I still sharing? I believe that I should be still sharing, right?
Right now I see, yes.
You see Siena, right? You see Tuscany, so it's probably correct, all right? So what I wanted to show now is that this toast is also showing up in this bar here. So here you see LB Notif, the application LB Notif has received here 2 toasts. Now, one thing which is interesting is that inside my test, I said, hello, Frank. And here I said, this is the title and this is the body. And here we see one of the problems that we are going to get, that we're going to solve next time, which is that there are different types of information inside one notification. This information here is a UI information, which is going to be displayed inside the bar, inside the toast itself. And then we have some data information, which is inside the launch thing. This is very similar to what we did before when we tested last time the Android notification, where I told you we have 2 types of notification. We have here the notification itself, which is going to be shown in the badge in the Android application. And then we have the data itself, which is going to be passed to the application. So again, same thing. So as you can see, we have a problem here, which is that this is using XML. This is using JSON. Here we have duplicated information here and here. Here we have some information here for the UI. We have some information here for the application. We are all going to solve that next time by using templates. So what I would propose, since we are already at time more or less, is that we stop here with the demo, all right?
Yep.
We have a success, so that's cool. Next time, I'll continue here, and I'll show you how to quickly configure the Android application to work with the notification hub as well. And then we can start building the Azure function endpoint if you want. So if I go back to my
We'll continue.
To my diagram.
Bat channel, same bat time. Isn't it how they say it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we decided when we are going to do it now, but when we are going to do the next
I was
session.
just making reference to the tweet from Bat this morning. So bat channel and bat time. In French,
right, so
how they say it when the cartoon was playing or the TV show was playing.
Yeah. Back then, when time was important, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, you don't care because you are streaming everything anyway. Cool. So we have built that part here. This part here, we didn't come to it yet, but we'll do that next time. And then after that, next time, we're also going to start by building the Azure endpoint so that we have really a seamless way to send the push notification and that we have something which is actually productive. We'll see how far we come next time. And we'll talk also about those templates, because since we have cross-platform, we have different formats for those notifications. We are going to see that there is a way in Notification Hub to unify all that using templates, okay?
Yeah, sure. So now we could go side by side just like that. So we see again your face and your beautiful hat. That is not a cowboy hat. We learned that today because of the kangaroo, right?
Yes, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen like this. My camera is going to have a little bit better resolution. As you can see, it's already getting dark here. So
yeah. So now, if you have any questions about what we did today or previously, now is the time. So you can ask questions.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll continue to say plenty of dad's jokes and stuff like that. Now I should have some prepared just in case, but yeah, we'll improvise.
It's not too bad. Anyway, I have my next meeting in 3 minutes, so I would say that the timing is actually pretty good. But definitely for people, so the previous stream, Pete is asking, unfortunately, it's not archived on Twitch because Twitch deletes the streams after a while, but we have it on YouTube. And so one place where you can go, if you go to dev.to, and then look for the Azure, what do they call that? Azure community, I guess. So if you go to dev.to/Azure, and then after that, just look for me, just look for my name, Laurent Bugnion, L Bugnion, whatever. You will find a series of articles. So basically, I started a series of articles which are describing what we did here. Now I'm a little bit behind with the blogs. I'm sorry about that. I have a ton of work and I couldn't totally finish it. So I'm a little bit behind, but I'm going to catch up as we go and describe what we did right now also in the blog with a little bit more explanation. So feel free to go and check it out. And the article is called Building a Notifications Client with Xamarin and Azure. It's actually a series of blogs. So here, there I also embedded the video. So if you want to watch the previous videos, this video is embedded there. And we even have an absolutely amazing thumbnail, which took us a lot of effort to create, right, Frank?
So, yeah. And right now it is kind of a workaround because like every video we do on this channel will be available on YouTube and the Microsoft Developer YouTube channel. It's just right now I'm waiting to make sure with Microsoft that I can use the All Around Azure name and make sure that we are all corrected and rate type and everything. So I'm just waiting. So Laurent, now we're just like doing a little bypass to share this video. So right now it is the only way to find it, but everything will be available soon. We'll have like a nice playlist and everything. So we'll get there
Frank,
eventually.
you do amazing work with that. So just to be clear, I'm giving you a hard time, but it's really cool. So I'm going to copy. I did take the article here. I just pasted it in the chat for
you cannot put URL in the chat, Laurent. Send it to me and I will paste it.
Are you sure? I can see it in the chat right now.
Yeah, no, I see just stars, just like Pete.
You see just stars.
Also,
okay.
Share it and.
I see. Okay, so this is discrimination totally. No, I'm just kidding. I know exactly why. Yeah. So anyway, do what I said, right? Just go to dev.to/Azure and then look for my name, and then you'll find what you want. Next time we'll talk about Azure Functions. We'll talk about those templates. So that should be also a fun thing. If we have time, we'll even go into Cosmos DB. So that should be really fun. All right.
Yeah. So thank you, Laurent, for spending time with us. Thank you all of you to spending a few hours with us. It was a very well fun talking about Windows Phone and Windows Phone and Windows Phone. Trying to do
actually,
like Candymans. Oh, that's cool. That's
actually
clever.
It's not just to complete on the chat here. It's not dev.to/Bugnion. It's dev.to/Azure because the article is on the Azure organization. Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Okay, friends. I need to jump into my
time.
next meeting, but thank you so much for attending. It was really fun to show you this thing. Okay.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye.